Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Jordan Rutter, Director of Communications for American Bird Conservancy and your host today. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you afterward. We'll be putting links in the chat, but in case you missed them, please know that we'll be sending an email to everyone who registered that will contain all the links referenced today, as well as a link to the recording. Automated captions are available for this webinar, and you can turn them on by clicking on the CC icon. Please submit any questions you have during the presentations using the Q&A box. Birds inspire and delight us. They fill us with wonder. They do so much from pollination to pest control, but birds are in trouble and they're disappearing fast. Thanks to generous support from people like you, American Bird Conservancy works with diverse partners throughout the Western Hemisphere to prevent imminent bird extinctions, improve millions of acres of habitat with bird-friendly management practices, and advocate for and create innovative solutions to urgent threats that put birds at risk. And together, we're achieving results. Over the past 30 years, ABC has conserved 3,000 bird species and 10 million acres of habitat for birds across the Americas. But the challenges facing birds are more urgent than ever, and that's why American Bird Conservancy is taking bold action for birds in 2025, but we need your help. Your tax-deductible gift will make it possible for ABC to conserve bird habitat, as well as prevent extinctions, reverse population declines, reduce threats for birds, and build an inclusive and equitable future for bird conservation. Together, we can do even more to save wild birds and the habitats they need to thrive. Will you make a gift now to make a difference for wild birds across the Americas? Please visit abcbirds.org/give or scan the code you see on the screen with your phone now. Thank you so much for being here to learn how to help birds across the Americas thrive. And special thanks to all the ABC members and supporters in the audience today. You are making a powerful impact on bird conservation throughout the Western Hemisphere. I'm so excited to talk about cardinals with you today. While South America's yellow cardinal, which, yes, to answer some questions that we've received on social media alone, is very real, or the Pyrrhuloxia of the Southwest United States on the screen right now, may have inspired you to sign up for today's webinar. I imagine many of you are here because of the unmistakable and universally beloved Northern Cardinal. And of course, there's just so much to love about them, isn't there? With their widespread range, bold colors, familiar sounds, Northern Cardinals are easy to recognize and hard to miss. They are, for many, a species that helps spark an interest in and love of birds. And in fact, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology has said that the male Northern Cardinal is perhaps responsible for getting more people to open up a bird field guide than any other bird. Because Northern Cardinals are so abundant and always around in their range, which has actually increased over time, many of us get to enjoy them all year long. And that means they also serve as a great reminder of how simple bird-friendly actions can benefit them and all the other species that visit your backyard or community, and help protect them from threats, including collisions, pesticides, free-roaming cats, and more. When we work together to keep common birds common by ensuring that they have safe and abundant habitat, we also help conserve birds throughout the Western Hemisphere, including species like the Pyrrhuloxia and yellow cardinal, which, by the way, only one of those is actually a true cardinal. Do you know which one? You'll learn later in the presentation, so stay tuned. But if you're ready to keep up with the cardinals, let me introduce you to your speakers. Rocío Lapido is coordinator for the Yellow Cardinal Project at Aves, Argentinas. She started her conservation career at the Buenos Aires Zoo, the closest place to do this work in the city. Since 2016, she has been coordinator for the Yellow Cardinal Project and is part of the Grassland Alliance team at Aves, Argentina. Binta Dixon is a fellow of ABC. She's the daughter of Southern Black farmers, indigenous story weavers, and courageous medicine women. Binta earned her Bachelor of Arts in Social Anthropology in 2012, a graduate certificate in African Diaspora Studies in 2013, and her Master's in Public Administration, specializing in nonprofit engagement from Florida International University. Binta also coordinates the ABC's Afrofuturism Collective. And me, Jordan Rutter. You already know me as your webinar host and now one of today's speakers, but I'm also Director of Communications here at ABC, and I'm a lifelong birder. Yes, I did in fact do my first grade science fair project on a basic feeder watch setup, which coincidentally included Northern Cardinals. And I went on to get my master's degree from the University of Minnesota, focused on Great Lakes piping plovers and science communication. I've been doing bird stuff literally forever, and always with a passion for helping folks learn more about and connect with birds, as well as learning how to conserve them. But enough about me. Let's get to the cardinals. So again, I am going to be sharing a presentation that's an overview of cardinals at large, as well as specific information about northern cardinals to help you maybe not take these birds for granted so much. So next slide, please. That's cardinal directions. That's not quite right. Next slide, please. Cardinals from the church isn't quite right either. Next slide, please. Cardinals sports team is closer, warmer, but not quite right. Next slide, please. Northern Cardinals. Finally, we're back on track. But all of these have cardinals in the name. So what's going on here? They have something all in common. Next slide, please. Cardinal red. So as we were going through those photos, if you didn't happen to catch it, all of them have this really distinguishable red in them. And that's because the Latin word for cardinal, the origin of this word is cardo, which means to hinge. And years ago, centuries ago, it got associated with this color. And so from geography to religion to ornithology now, this color red is symbolic of something that is so significant that it has been associated with this label. So since the 12th century, cardinal, the word, has been associated with those clergymen in the Catholic Church. And that red has then influenced the naming of this beloved backyard bird, Northern Cardinal. So it really is this long-standing significance of the word that now has become so symbolic across all of these things. Next slide, please. But again, I'm going to focus on Northern Cardinal for the rest of the talk. But what is a cardinal? Where does it fit in the bird family tree? What are some cool facts? I'm going to share more about it. So to jump in, most of you may be familiar with a family tree from, say, Ancestry.com or something, right? This is a super generic bird family tree. So if you look in that bottom right corner, you see cardinals, and that's where they fit. So they're part of this larger songbird family. And really the point of this, this family tree is to show you their relationship with all 10,000 plus species in the world. And you can see that their far, far distant cousin, their farthest relative, is on the far left with those ostriches. But really, this is just to help you understand where they all fit in the bird family. So next slide, please. So if you focus on cardinals specifically and you zoom out just a little bit, they're going to be in the family of grosbeaks, tanagers, and buntings. That's the section of your field guide that you'll see directly next to these birds. And as you can see, they're all really colorful. They have a lot of visual similarities. They all are beautiful singers. But we're going to dig in a little bit more to cardinals specifically because, next slide, please. There's only 3 true cardinals. So scientifically speaking, when we talk about genetics and what is a species, there's only 3 cardinals. Going left to right on the slide, we have Northern Cardinal, Pyrrhuloxia, and then Vermilion Cardinal, which is found in Colombia and Venezuela. So if there's only 3 true cardinals, think of those kind of as siblings on the family tree, and then the next relatives are those grosbeaks, tanagers, and buntings. What's going on with all of these other birds that have cardinals in the name? Next slide, please. So yellow cardinals, which again is a real bird, are not true cardinals. However, they're just as striking, of course, and they're very real, but they only share a visual similarity with the bird Northern Cardinal and that true cardinal family. Rocío is another presenter on this webinar, and she'll be sharing more about yellow cardinals specifically. But really, ultimately, we just need to remember that Names are arbitrary, and initial researchers didn't know how to define species. A lot of people still wonder what is a species, but they were making these visual comparisons. And so this bird on the screen, yellow cardinal, looked like a northern cardinal, hence they both have cardinal in the name. But again, ornithological research has helped us learn the true story, and now we know based on genetics that these birds don't have as much in common as we originally thought. Next slide, please. Uh, the following slides are going to really be based off of all of the incredible questions that came in during registration. Thank you so much to everyone who RSVP'd and shared those questions and comments. I want to make sure to address them so that you learn as much as you can about Northern Cardinals. So here we go. Where can you find Northern Cardinals? This is a really widespread, very common and abundant bird across Eastern North America. It has been expanding its range over time, and based off of observations, again, this is a common and abundant bird, we actually have been able to track their range expansion since the mid-1800s. And this is largely due to climate change, so temperature changes as well as human development has really impacted the ability for this bird to keep expanding. But where can you find them more specifically? Next slide, please. So naturally, they're found along forest edges. However, they're really adaptable with the human environment. So you can find them in parks and backyards. They're really common in urban and suburban areas. One of the great benefits of that is that we have birds all around us. We can enjoy them very frequently, but they also are really great ambassadors then for, again, that backyard bird connection. So next slide, please. So you might think that your area, your home, your community is a really safe area, but we can always do more to help our yardinals. So again, as backyard bird ambassadors, we really want to make sure that we're always living a bird-friendly life. Birds have really hard lives being outside in nature, especially as cardinals. They need to find food on a daily basis. They need to avoid predators on a daily basis. And so as people, we can do things right now, even during this webinar, to help reduce those threats. I encourage you to learn more on our website, of course, for specifics and background information, but keeping your cat inside is a wonderful thing to do right now today to help your cardinals and other birds in your area, as well as treating windows. As you can see in this photo, this cardinal is right up against a window, and we want to avoid any collision incidences. Planting native plants is a great way to give food sources as well as additional habitat, as well as preventing any use of pesticides in your area to reduce toxicity. There's a lot more, but again, you can find that on our website. Next slide, please. So a really fun trivial aspect of cardinals is how old are they? Based off of banding research, so that's when researchers will put those little metal bands or bracelets on bird legs and be able to track them over time. We actually know that the oldest known northern cardinal was a female. Shout out to females, that lived to be almost 16 years old in Pennsylvania. This is incredible when you think about all of those winters that she had to survive. Think about all the chicks that she laid eggs for and hatched and raised. This bird could almost learn how to drive, she was so old. And to put that in perspective, a lot of songbirds, especially small ones, only live a few years. So to live almost 16 is quite the feat. Next slide, please. So how big is a cardinal actually, right? Birds always can be deceiving in their size and shape. So cardinals are between a sparrow and a robin, but that still might not be so helpful. So I want you to imagine holding a stick of butter in your hand. Now add a short little tail to it, and that's how big a cardinal is. They're about 8.5 inches from head to tail. And then if you're still holding that stick of butter, cut it in half. Cardinals weigh almost 50 grams. A stick of butter is 100 grams, so you cut it in half, and there you go. Birds, again, have those hollow bones, and they're made for flying, so they weigh a lot less than their size would indicate. But again, in terms of seeing it in your yard, you're looking for a bird that's a little bit smaller than a robin. Next slide, please. Have you ever heard what seems like a laser beam in your yard? It's honestly one of my favorite sounds because all of a sudden it just sounds so silly and different. But those are cardinals, and it's really, really cool. One of the notable things about cardinals is that both males and females sing, which is really wonderful. They have this song that they do for courtship duets during the breeding season, but they also use it for communication. So females will sing to help the male know when it's safe to come and go from the nest, just to avoid predators and make sure that there's no leading something to the nest unnecessarily. Researchers have recorded over 16 different calls for Northern Cardinals, and unfortunately, I won't be able to play them all for you today during this webinar, but you can find them on our website and listen to them and compare all of those different ones. They're really amazing. Next slide, please. So why are cardinals red? As the slide says, you are what you eat, and it's literally because of the food that cardinals eat that makes them red. So there are plant-based pigments called carotenoids that are naturally occurring in food, and the way that these cardinals process those things in their bodies and then express them come across in their feathers as red. And this is true for birds that have orange or yellow or other warm colored feathers as well. But the really amazing thing is now, naturally, female cardinals are rating these male from a breeding perspective, but from a human perspective, you can just visually tell how healthy and how many resources these cardinals have access to just by looking at them. So if you see a male cardinal, especially, that just looks so bright and vibrant, you can tell that that cardinal is doing really well, both again in terms of the quality of food that he's eating and how much. Now, this is in contrast to, say, a blue jay. Birds that are blue, black, green, gray, those are structural. So just because of how the feathers come out of a bird's body and light is reflected makes those birds have those cool colors. And so the food isn't impacting at all. But again, coming back to cardinals, it's really similar to what most people might be familiar with, where flamingos are pink because of the shrimp they eat. It's kind of that same process, but it's all based off of this word carotenoids, based off of their food. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a shout out to my writer editor team and our language nerds, because we're talking about yellow northern cardinal. So lowercase y, adjective, not the official name for a bird. But the really amazing thing about this, and you may have even seen it in the news because it's so noteworthy, but this genetic mutation happens in northern cardinals and other birds as well, that just makes them not process those carotenoids properly. It's not harmful, it's not a problem or anything, it's just a mutation. It's called xanthochromism. And so again, this is a northern cardinal. It technically should be red, but because of that condition, it becomes yellow and it really stands out. But again, that shouldn't be confused with the capital Y yellow cardinal, which is an official species. But again, we'll learn more about official species in the next presentation. Next slide, please. So if cardinals are red because of what they eat, what do they eat? Many of you may already be feeding these birds and others in your backyard, and that's what attracted you to this webinar today. But if you still need some tips, here you go. One is black oil sunflower seeds is a must. You can't go wrong with those. If you look at a cardinal, you see these gigantic cone-shaped bills, and those are built for cracking nuts and seeds. And so you want to make sure that you have the right food for the right beak. In this case, those sunflower seeds. However, general bird seed mixes will work as well. And then you want to make sure to present it on a platter of sorts through things that help that bill get access. So things like platform feeders, even scattered on the ground, or tube feeders that have a large area are really great for these birds. Now, I want to remind you though, bird feeding does come with really big responsibility aspects. You got to get in good habits and make sure that you regularly clean those bird feeders. Think of it like your dishes in your kitchen. You wash those after every use. We want to do the same thing for the birds. It's just really good hygienic practice. And then same thing with our bird baths as well. if you're drinking water, if you're bathing, you want to make sure those are clean, and that's the best thing to do for the birds as well. You also want to maintain your vigilance on any local recommendations for bird feeding. So learn more on our website. Next slide, please. Okay, this is where I get to boggle your mind, hopefully. What is a black-headed cardinal? A lot of folks wrote in with concerns about these cardinals that they saw and wondered if they need to intervene. Even my own team has seen this picture and said it's freaky. They're little dinosaurs. What's going on here? I can assure you that this bird is just suffering from baldness, basically. It's totally healthy, totally okay, and totally expected. So Northern Cardinals molt in a way that is really striking. So they will shed all of their feathers off of their head at once in order to regrow new ones. It's just like when you change your clothes and do laundry. However, again, Northern Cardinals being so common and abundant and so vibrantly colored makes this really stand out. This is similar to other birds that molt in this fashion. Blue jays are another species like that. But their head, they just need a new haircut almost. But again, totally natural. Their body feathers will take more of a stepwise process because they still want to be able to fly. So that's why you never see a completely featherless or naked bird. They do have that trade-off of that molting cycle. Another fun fact to share about this picture in specific, that hole that is kind of to the bottom of the eye of the bird on the left that doesn't have feathers on its head, that's its ear. So again, thinking about how these are basically little dinosaurs, there's a lot of really cool biological evolutionary things to be shared and noted here. But again, if you ever see this, don't worry, just enjoy it and think they're kind of funky. Next slide, please. Another really funky cardinal to share is thanks to Shirley and Jeffrey Caldwell. They shared this photo with us to just celebrate what happens and what cool different things happen with birds. So this is actually a hermaphroditic cardinal. It's half female, half male. It is super rare and yet is a phenomenon that has been observed in other types of birds and animals. And this did make the news along with some of the other, the yellow cardinals and such, because these birds are just so wonderful and celebrated that sharing these things has been newsworthy. Next slide, please. A lot of folks have asked about why do birds attack car windows and mirrors, and what can they do about it? So this is kind of my nod at angry birds. There's not actually any known connection, but male cardinals are super aggressive, especially during the breeding season. They can be literally hyped up on testosterone and just don't know the difference between what a real bird and a reflection is. So this is a really good reminder for us, again, to treat our windows and be careful about reflections in general, because not only do we want to reduce collisions, but this is really stressful. This male cardinal really thinks that it is defending its territory and doing everything it can to be a good mate and a good father bird. And so that does not need any extra challenges and hurdles on our part. So if you ever see this, especially if it's your car, consider covering up those mirrors, even if it's just temporarily. And then again, learn more to take action on your own windows around your house to reduce those reflections and then again, collisions at large. Next slide, please. So breeding and nesting. A lot of folks had questions about this. Most of that information, I'm going to direct you to our website again, just to learn more. But I do want to flag that Reddit has a whole page about how Northern Cardinals might be the most romantic bird in the world. I don't know about that. They are socially monogamous, but they sometimes have little side affairs. So depending on what you consider romantic, biologically speaking, it might be up for debate, but they sure are very sweet and they will stay together, again, at least socially, throughout the year on their territory as well. Next slide, please. I really wanted to flag that Northern Cardinals especially have a really special place in human culture. A lot of folks wrote in, whether it was short stories and experiences with cardinals. I can share, I really associate this bird with my own great-grandmother, as many of you have shared with other family members. Cardinals, for some reason, just have this really strong connection to human folklore and spiritual meanings, whether that is from an official religious perspective or just superstitions and more. We can't take for granted that connection of birds and people, and especially Northern Cardinals right now. Next slide, please. And it's not just a personal or individual level. I don't know why there's this group of states, but all of these states on the map have Northern Cardinal as their state bird. So clearly there's some impact on a societal level. Another really fun trivia fact is that there are 1,200 miles of road in the United States alone that have the name Cardinal in it. So Cardinal Road, Cardinal Avenue, it all adds up to 1,200 miles of road. So again, just thinking through that connection and impact of this bird is really, really important. Next slide, please. So we all love cardinals. I hope I've shared some really fun facts with you about this species. There's so much more to share though. And so again, friendly reminder that we need to help keep common birds common. Northern cardinals were actually part of the bird trade in the 1800s. And I know it seems silly and deceiving, but they're actually part of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act protection laws. And so we need to make sure to uphold that legislation and everything else that is in our toolbox to help keep this bird and all of the others common. We want to continue to love it, so let's love on it. There's several ways that, again, you can take action right now, even during this webinar, and learn more on our website for anything else. So thank you so much. And please remember that you can take these simple actions in your yard, in your community, to help the individual birds around you that matter. Another way to help birds that can't be taken for granted is supporting American Bird Conservancy. Soon, migratory birds are going to be arriving from their non-breeding grounds, and many spend time in your yard and parks along with your cardinals. Together, we can help conserve all birds throughout the Western Hemisphere and the habitats that they need to thrive. Thank you so much. And Binta is now going to take us virtually to the Southwest to talk about Pyrrhuloxia specifically. Welcome, Binta.
Hello, thank you so much, Jordan. I learned so much about cardinals just now today, and it's always exciting to learn more about birds that I have so much love for. And I'm excited, you all, to also say my name is Binta Dixon, and I started working with the American Bird Conservancy as an advocacy coordinator working in the Western region on the pesticides campaign. And so I really am so grateful to have the opportunity to learn about cardinals, to learn about the birds that just really make up such a huge impact in my life. And I'm currently able to work with the Together for Birds project with the American Bird Conservancy. So first, I want you to think about, what is your favorite cardinal moment? I think, as Jordan shared, cardinals play such an important role in so many of our lives. And so if you can think of that, I will actually share a story of my own. I'm originally from North Carolina. So after many years away, I moved back to my home state and to my hometown. And one of the first beings, creatures to greet me was the Northern Cardinal. And it was really one of those moments where kind of like, it felt kind of like a cousin was welcoming me home. The Cardinals played such a big role in my upbringing, in my childhood. And I had this thought that it's possible, because cardinals do not migrate and because this space where I grew up is still very much forested, these cardinals might be descendants of the cardinals that I watched when I was young. And that gave me a lot of comfort. So when I moved to the Southwest, that was the one thing that I was really sad about, that I won't have this familiar relationship with cardinals that I was so used to. However, I was somewhat wrong because Pyrrhuloxia is native to the Southwest and or also called the desert cardinal. And so it was wonderful to meet them there. And I can hear the call there. And so Pyrrhuloxia, also known as a desert cardinal, is a beautiful dusted silver feathered cardinal that I actually got to see right outside my window when I first moved to the area. And I had never seen it before, honestly hadn't heard of them before. So I was fascinated and I needed to learn more. It turns out that they reside in the Southwest and also in northern to central Mexico is where you can find the desert cardinal. Um, and some things that really drew me in were their dusty, their silver feathers, their short curved beak, which was yellow, very distinct from the northern cardinal, and to know that they do share the fact that they don't migrate, similar to the northern cardinals. It definitely is fascinating to learn about them and to see them in person. Because they live in a very different climate than northern cardinals, they tend to eat insects, and so that's why their bill is very different. And also their call, as you may have heard earlier, is a little distinct from the northern cardinal. So why are cardinals and their colorful cousins important? To you. I will say for me, I think that meeting Pyrrhuloxia, understanding that although I'm really far from home, there's this other cardinal that resides in this area that still is a bird that you can find frequently and see them in the skies, perching on cactus and small trees, just brought a lot of comfort for me. And throughout history, we look up to cardinals, we look up to birds, both metaphorically and literally. Their songs, their colors, being able to witness them with our families just brings a lot of togetherness. And the health and diversity of bird populations is also a key measure of ecosystem health. They tell us if our communities are healthy, if the water and the wildlife is doing well. And we know that birds spread enough seeds to keep a whole forest alive. So just think about that. Birds and cardinals play such a beautiful role in our environments, both physically and scientifically, and also for our lives. And that is why I also want to talk a little bit about a threat that cardinals and many other birds throughout the US and throughout the Americas are facing. And that is neonicotinoids. So neonicotinoids are a class of insecticide that is used widely across the United States. And the thing that is most dangerous about neonics is that they affect birds, non-target insects, large mammals, and studies are showing that they even have some effect on humans. And what makes them so prolific is that they persist in the soil and they're highly water soluble, which is a big problem for birds and for our cardinals. Here is an image you can see of how a neonic might move through an ecosystem. So thinking about a cardinal eating a seed that has been treated, or a plant in the soil being sprayed and then it goes into the soil, you can see that. Even water, it can affect. And unfortunately, we know that 100 million birds are killed every year by pesticide. And the way that a lot of exposure happens is through agriculture. So seed treatments, sprays, soil drenching. However, we also see it in private use, in gardens, lawns, and golf courses. And you can see here, this is kind of what you could expect to see from a neonic treated seed. It has these bright colors. And so one of the main ways that cardinals and other birds are exposed is ingestion. Eating the seeds, and also insects. So, and also their dermal and inhalation. So if they rub up against a plant that has been sprayed, or there's spraying happening and the birds breathe this in, or for hummingbirds, if they're trying to get nectar and they come across a plant or a flower that has been sprayed, this could be really dangerous. And something to note that I alluded to earlier is both seed-eating birds and insect-eating birds are exposed. So the northern cardinal and Pyrrhuloxia also have a risk of being exposed to neonics, because if a plant has been sprayed and an insect is eating that plant, the bird that eats the insect can also be harmed. And what are the ecosystem impacts? So for Northern Cardinals and Pyrrhuloxia alike, all cardinals, their ecosystems are really important to their survival. When we have the introduction of pesticides like neonics, it can collapse their food sources because if something has been sprayed, it's no longer safe for them. It can also contaminate the habitat. The trees, the soil, the air becomes a little less safe. And also, the overuse of neonics cause resistance to that pesticide. So the insects or the pests that we're trying to get rid of sometimes will become more prevalent because they no longer react to that substance, which can degrade the environment that we're trying to save. Specifically for desert cardinals, they are threatened by the loss of riparian areas, which are trees and woodlands right along streams and rivers. If neonics are introduced here, they can have devastating impacts on that ecosystem, which is a very delicate space and really important to Pyrrhuloxia. I did want to mention one specific neonic, which is called clothianidine. And this neonic is really widespread. It's estimated that 60% of all endangered species, over 1,200 different plants and animals, are likely affected by this neonic, and that it will most likely affect over 400 different species and their habitats. One thing that's especially dangerous to note about this is that it reduces the body weight. It's found to reduce the body weight in doves, and so we can hypothesize that it can reduce body weight in other birds. And small birds are especially vulnerable, like the cardinal, which we learned earlier has a small body weight, already has a low body weight, and so is vulnerable to this. I want to mention crops. So in 2022, about 20% of wheat was treated with some kind of pesticide. And this is significant for birds. And we know that it was treated for use for humans and for the birds. So when the birds come and they eat wheat, the seeds from the wheat, it can be deadly for them. One neonic treated seed is actually enough to kill a small songbird, like our Pyrrhuloxia friend here. So what I shared, I will be honest, is can be devastating, can be hard to hear. I know when I first learned about the effects of neonics, I was stunned and I honestly felt super sad. I had no idea that this was such a big issue and I felt a little bit helpless. But the thing is that we're not. Humans are the ones who created this issue for birds, and so we are the ones who can help to solve it and to support our bird populations to thrive. So what can we do? There are things you can do in your own life and in your environment. You can buy organic products, especially coffee. Coffee is one thing that when we look into buying organic coffee, we're actually supporting birds. Garden organic. So consider the fertilizers, the chemicals, the processes you use to garden, and if they're safe for your backyard birds like cardinals. Try to avoid synthetic chemical pesticides, and to do that, read the labels. A lot of seeds have to say whether they have neonics, if the seeds are sprayed with neonics, and if you're using a fertilizer or some other kind of compound in your garden, make sure to see what's in there. Plant native plants. We know that when we plant plants that are native to an area, they require a lot less chemicals, a lot less processes to thrive. So that's one way we can support cardinals. And talk to your representatives, talk to your neighbors, talk to the people who represent you in your state, and tell them that this is important to you. Together, we can definitely make an impact on this issue. And then one other thing to consider is telling folks about the American Bird Conservancy's untreated seed pilot program. So we have a new program that we're really excited about that's offering free untreated seeds to farmers. This means that if you are a small or medium scale farm, you can get access to seeds that will be safe for birds, that can help your bird populations to grow and thrive. You can use this QR code, just take a picture and find out more, share it with your farmer friends and with other folks who might be interested. There's so many things that we can still do to support our bird population, and we definitely need federal and state regulations that reduce the harm of neonics and support healthy birds and their habitats. We want to be able to enjoy the beauty of cardinals for many generations to come, and together we can do that. And the American Bird Conservancy is doing so much to support that, and we thank you for supporting the work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Binta. That was wonderful. And we'll have you back on at the Q&A at the end of the presentations. So we actually have a change of pace right now. Rocío, our third presenter, is working in the field right now to help conserve the endangered yellow cardinal. And due to heavy rains and other weather that has impacted her travel, she's not able to join us live today because she's with the birds doing really important conservation work. She did send us a recording of her presentation though, so we're going to be playing that. And then unfortunately, she won't be part of the Q&A session, but you'll still be able to learn again about this important bird and work. Please note that sometimes recordings might affect your volume over Zoom, so you might need to adjust your volume on your individual device. But please know that no matter what happens in the webinar recording that you'll be receiving shortly, everything will be improved due to editing. So again, thank you so much for your patience and understanding and support of Rocío and the important work for endangered yellow cardinal.
Hi everyone, my name is Rocío and I'm leading the work with the yellow cardinal in Aves Argentinas. First of all, I want to excuse myself if you see some mistakes in my presentation, but we are on the field right now checking out the cardinals with visitors from BirdLife, and we have a serious trouble. Yesterday, we have so much rain that our truck got stuck in the mud and we have to spend the night at one of our friends' ranch. And today we are moving to Esteros de Liberá, and the road is so bumpy that we can reach on time for this presentation. So we are doing our best to be part of it. So, well, this is the best way I find to be with you today. But I told you some bad news, but the good one is like we got to see one of our cardinals rescue, which is paired and raising a healthy chick. So that rainy day was a very happy day too. In the next slide, I want to introduce to you the yellow cardinals. Although it is called cardinal, the bird doesn't belong to the family of Cardinalidae, but belongs to the Thraupite family. Sexes are similar. They are yellowish olive at the sun. They are a bright yellow with a black throat and a patch and a black chest, both of them. To differentiate them, you can pay attention to the yellow air-brown in the male and the more grayish breast and flanks on the female. And the juveniles are more likely to the females. Only when they are like 6 months old, they start to differentiate it between male and females. In the next slide, you can see its habitat, which is placed in an ecoregion called Espinal. We have the shape of a half a moon surrounding another ecoregion called Pampas in central Argentina. In the next slide, you can see some pictures about this environment. The one of the left is the Espinal. We are in Entre Rios, where we are being these few days with our friends of BirdLife. And this is like Espinal looks like as I've been telling you, in the left, like in Entre Rios, and in the right, in the initial image of the right, it's more like with the part where the Espinal meets the Chaco Seco and have some more dry environment. Well, to continue in the next slide, it's like what happened to the yellow cardinals. Unfortunately, this bird is disappearing. Today, the IUCN estimates this population to be no higher than 2,000 mature individuals. And the main cause for this are the habitat loss and fragmentation and the demand for illegal trade to keep this bird as cage birds, of course. A recent study that looked into Facebook sales pages found that the yellow cardinals are sold for $3,000 each. So it's more, it's too expensive for some bird in the illegal trade. Well, in the next slide, it's like I wanted to talk about the Alianza Cardenal Amarillo because clearly this makes a very complex problem to address, the illegal trade. Because we are talking about an organized crime, so for us it's absolutely fundamental that the work is strong to work in a strong alliance with the strategic partners. Well, today the Yellow Cardinal Alliance counts with the participation of 17 partners, and well, in the next slide, I would like to tell you more about them. Some of them. So we work with law enforcement agents, and with them we seek to improve seizures capacity, and for the rescue animal receive the correct first aid attention in this situation, no? And with this, we want to increase their survival chances because this is the first place where they need to get a right handle. In the next slide, I want to talk to you that we worked together with rescue centers to provide professional medical care to the rescue birds and fully recover them to be able to go back into the wild. And well, this is so important for us. In the next slide, it's like we work in alliance with protected areas and private owners to find safe places to release the rehabilitated cardinals, to make sure that they will not be hunted again in the places where we release them. This is also important for us so that we can go back and monitor their success in the wild constantly. Well, in the next slide, we are also working at rural schools close to the extraction sites because we believe that education is a powerful tool. And we have been working with 20 schools, and we were carrying out different activities like bird watching with the kids and especially design games about the illegal wildlife traffic problem. And we are having very good receptions at the schools, and teachers asking us to go back this year. This is part of the work we are been doing the last days. Well, so we want to prepare a more complex programs to them for the next years. So our next challengers are to update the population status of the yellow cardinal, to understand what the end destination of traffic cardinals abroad of Argentina, how we change behavior along the different instances of traffic change, and where new partners to grow dispersion are. This is like our goals and in what we are going to work in this near future. Well, in the next slide, to run up, I wanted to share with you that since we started working, we were able to rescue, rehabilitate, and release back into the wild 2,052 yellow cardinals. Unfortunately, due to the lack of resources, we have not been able to follow all the released cardinals, but in South Buenos Aires, we had been systematically monitoring the released birds, and we have seen how 26 of them have mated and nested with wild partners. I'm sorry. And well, on the next slide, and to finish, I want to share with you a video of one of these rescue and releases cardinals back in the wild with its chicks, because this is so important for our project and the member of our project to see wild released cardinals going back to the wild and being cardinals again in its home, in the Espinal. So it's like part of the intimacy that we want to share with you. Again, I want to excuse myself. I've been doing the best to get to you. I hope this give you a little glance of our project and you get interested in it. Well, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you again, everyone, for your understanding that Rocío couldn't join us today. We wish her and the team all the best as they complete their field work. And again, we'll have lots of information on our website if you'd like to learn more. But thank you so much, Binta, for coming back online. I'd love to talk to you more about your work and these incredible birds. Before we get started, I just want to jump in to kind of set the stage right now, especially since we have both me representing Northern Cardinals and Binta representing Pyrrhuloxia. A lot of folks were asking how to differentiate female Northern Cardinals versus Pyrrhuloxia. So if you're outside and you see these birds, how can you tell them apart? I'm going to give my pointer, and Binta, of course, jump in if you want, but it's all in the lipstick. I've always considered female Northern Cardinals as these really classy, really like, I don't know, they would be the fashionistas of the bird world. And so they have these red beaks, just like red lipstick. Pyrrhuloxia, on the other hand, have bright yellow beaks. So there are some other field marks regarding their feathers and coloring of their plumage, but the like can't go wrong, always reliable, no matter what like the lighting is or what you consider to be gray or brown or something. Just look at the lipstick of these two birds and you'll get it every time.
I think those are great pointers. I honestly don't have much to add other than there have been some cases of Pyrrhuloxia and Northern Cardinals like hybridizing or mating. So there are some that are both, which further complicates it. But I think the tips that Jordan mentioned are great ones to help to identify them.
Yeah, Binta, you're just proving that there's always an exception to the rule, and birds definitely keep us on our toes. There's no always, reliable, fast and strong, but trying to always help those folks know where to start at least. And that brings us to another question too that folks have asked, which is about hybridizing and just the differences of the examples I shared for Northern Cardinals, as well as the three true Cardinals. So Binta, do you have anything else to share about that hybridization? It's kind of funky though. I mean,
I
that's
just learned about it. I thought it was fascinating because here in the Southwest, we do have both Northern Cardinals and Pyrrhuloxia. So it's just a possibility. I found it
yeah.
fascinating.
Well, and it goes back to that family tree of, again, how different our species are not. And so birds or any animal that can hybridize tend to have a lot more genetic commonalities than birds or animals that are super different. So having Northern Cardinal and Pyrrhuloxia hybridized makes a lot of sense because of how their relationships are scientifically and genetically. Northern Cardinals wouldn't say hybridize with a blue jay. That's unheard of. That's not possible. So it is really fascinating. And you can go down a lot of rabbit holes thinking about hybridization and species and so on. I honestly can't tell our audience though if Northern Cardinals actually mated with that yellow adjective Northern Cardinal. I don't know if people actually tracked that and made that observation yet. I do know that for the hermaphroditic one, the one that was half male and half female, it's only speculated. Again, there weren't any confirmation of observations, but unfortunately, that bird probably has a little too much going on under the hood to actually be successful. So again, really cool observation, but it is really fascinating to think about those species. But Binta, since I have you here, I'd just love to hear more about the work that you're doing. What's exciting? What's coming up? Is there anything else that you want to make sure folks know about?
Sure. I think, well, one, I am not an expert on birds. I'll say that. I am a lifelong learner and a supporter of birds. So this has been a great opportunity to work with other folks at American Bird Conservancy who are experts, who are scientists, who have such a wealth of expertise. And one thing that I've learned, and I saw this in the chat, a few questions about neonics and their use at home. And the reality is that, yes, they are used in a lot of pest control products, and box store plants. So if you don't know where the seed is coming from, it can be difficult to know if it's been treated. And that's why buying plants from native nurseries, from local nurseries, is a great way to ensure that you're getting plants that are safe for birds. One thing that I will say that I'm learning is just how many different people are lovers of birds, and they may not consider themselves birders, but they every day in their lived environments, they're looking out into their window, they're going outside to spend time with nature and enjoying the bird songs. And so I think one thing that I'll just say is that I really encourage everyone, no matter where you are, just to take some time and spend some time with your local birds, your cardinals. And yeah, it's a great way to connect.
Are there any unexpected things about any projects that you're working on right now that are coming up or that you are looking forward to? Any really incredible connections you've made with all of the people that you've crossed paths with in this work?
I mean, so many incredible connections. I will say I was lucky enough to be able to meet so many folks throughout the Southwest who are really dedicated to birds and to this ecosystem. So learning about the riparian areas, learning how important they are for Pyrrhuloxia and for desert cardinals was really important. So going out to the Santa Clara River, Santa Cruz River, and learning how to repair those areas, how to take care of them, was something that I'm really finding. There are people who have dedicated their lives to the Sonoran Desert and protecting that, which is really inspiring to me. Yeah, so I think that's what I'm learning, as well as just collaborating with so many other conservationists who are dedicated to uplifting the importance of biodiversity and birds.
Absolutely. Is there any other fun bird fact that you've learned that you would love to share? Anything mind-boggling that, especially as a newer to birds person, that you'd love to share with our audience?
Oh my goodness, there's so many probably. I'm always learning new things about birds. Let's see, what's one? I don't know. I don't know that this is a fact, but seeing like desert cardinals perched on cactuses is just so wild to me. The fact that a lot of birds will like create nests in the cactus and it's such a great home for them. It's just like it blows my mind to see that happening.
Well, we've quickly run out of time, but Binta, is there anything else you'd love to leave with the audience? Anything that you hope that they take away from this webinar and share with a friend?
Sure. I think just share your bird stories. If you have a story about how a bird has impacted your life or your family, share that with someone else. I saw someone in the chat asking how can they get other folks to care? And I think just sharing our personal connections is such a great way to do that. And also go to the library of bird calls and bird songs on American Bird Conservancy. Just take some time and learn those calls so that when you're out for a walk, you know who you're listening to.
Well, thank you, Binta, so much for joining us today. Your work is incredible and so important. And thank you so much to our audience as well. All registrants will receive a link to the recording via email in just a few days. The conservation efforts that you've heard about today are only possible thanks to members and supporters like you who care about birds and believe in American Bird Conservancy's mission to conserve them. Together, we can do even more to save wild birds and the habitats they need to thrive. Will you make a gift to make a difference for wild birds across the Americas? Please consider making your tax-deductible gift right now at American Bird Conservancy's website, abcbirds.org/give, or by scanning the code on your screen with your phone, or via the secure online donation form that you'll be redirected to after our webinar ends today. You can give with your credit card, bank account, or even Apple Pay. Thank you so much again for caring about birds and sharing our mission to conserve them. Good birding.